On this episode of Survive and Thrive 8791, I welcome Greg Marshall to the Buck and Honey's remote studios. Marshall, a 3-time Emmy Award-winning brand and marketing developer who's worked with Aaron Rodgers, One Call That's All attorney David Gruber, and the Milwaukee Brewers. But after a major health scare in college, including a seizure and temporary loss of feeling in his legs, Marshall's positive outlook carried him forward. Now, in addition to his creative work, he's captivating audiences across the Midwest with his one-man storytelling show. Greg Marshall pops out of the trees. This will be a good one. Here we go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. What is up wherever you are, whatever you're doing? I hope you're having a great day. Welcome to another episode of Survive and Thrive 8791. I'm your host, Coach Decora. We are in the Buck and Honey's remote studios on the east side of our great capital city of Madison, Wisconsin. You can listen to the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, and YouTube at Survive and Thrive 8791. You can follow the podcast and get access to previous episodes on Facebook at Survive and Thrive 8791, the podcast. Don't forget to hit that follow button wherever you listen to the show. Leave me a comment if you liked what you heard. If there's a topic or you know a guest who would love to share their story, email me at tdecora@gmail.com. Glad you could join us. Our mission is to share stories and conversations that make you cry, laugh, and think, stimulating emotions, creating laughter, and inspiring the mind. A new episode will air on Monday and Thursday morning featuring a wide range of guests. The podcast will touch on many subjects such as, but not limited to, grief, loss of a loved one, recovery, professional setback, mental illness, success despite challenges, etc. Our guests will share how they learn to survive and thrive. I have a conference reminder before I introduce our esteemed guest. I'd like to highlight the upcoming Survive and Thrive 8791 Mental Health and Recovery Conference taking place in Madison, Wisconsin. Join us on Wednesday and Thursday, October 29th and 30th at the Ho-Chunk Nation Madison branch office. This powerful 2-day event will feature several speakers who will share their stories through mental health and addiction challenges and how they've learned to survive and thrive. You can register for that conference at our website. If you're a business or an advocate for mental health and recovery, we invite you to partner with us through sponsorship opportunities. Our website is surviveandthrive8791.com. This is our guest and episode intro, and we've got an awesome guest today, and I'm glad I stumbled upon him, and I'll explain where that happened. But according to the internet, and the internet is always right, correct, Greg Marshall?
Yes, always. Never a question.
Yes, always, never a question.
Yeah, and you except never. Just kidding. Yeah, I think it's more accurate nowadays, but only sort of. I don't know how to answer that question, Tim.
Yeah, you answered it pretty much like most people. But according to an AI, artificial intelligence overview, it's difficult to pinpoint an exact number of people who get sick from an undiagnosed disease each year, as by definition, these conditions are not yet identified. However, it's estimated that around 30 million people in the United States are living with a rare disease, and a portion of those individuals remain undiagnosed despite extensive medical efforts. And today's guest had that happen to him at a young age, almost a quarter century ago, and he's going to walk us through that here in a little bit. But today, I welcome Greg Marshall to the Buck and Honey's remote studios. Greg grew up in Lodi, Wisconsin, and attended Lodi High School and is a proud Blue Devil. After high school, Greg would take his talents to the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. With his schooling done at UWM, Greg would start out as a recording artist and performer. Currently, he is a 3-time Emmy Award-winning storyteller and producer. Today, I'm so glad you could join us. Greg Marshall, what is up?
Yes, sir. I'm excited to hang out with you right now, Tim. It's going to be fun.
How's the summer been going?
Summer is fantastic. One of the most exciting things is that my 16-year-old daughter moved to Guatemala for a month to study Spanish, and she turned 17 while there. So my wife and I went and visited her and spent some time in Antigua and Atitlan Lake, and it was unbelievable. So yeah, it's been a pretty exciting summer.
Guatemala, that's a big, huge step, not only for your daughter to go there, maybe solo, or unless you went with a church group, but for you to cut the umbilical cord and let her go, that's a lot of trust you're putting in with your kiddo and certainly people who are taking her down there.
Yeah, I felt like that's what I think she just needed us to trust her with something big. And that's we were both kind of like, all right, we're letting you do this. And then we have a friend who was going to do a program down there, and they invited Sage to come with when I asked about it. So yeah, it was great. And yes, it took a lot of trust, and it was a big step for us.
Have you had a chance to unwind at all with your work schedule or performing schedule? Have you had a chance to do that?
I don't think so. Not really. Tonight, I have to put some windows back in that we painted, or that my wife painted. I just took them out, and now it's my job to put them back in. And that will actually be a really nice disconnect, because it gives me something to do where I have to disconnect and shut down a bit. So yeah, it has not been a very unwindy summer.
Are you a big state fair kind of guy?
Oh, not really, no. We just went a couple of nights ago.
Oh, you
My
did?
wife and I and our four daughters, and they're 19, 17, 15, and 12. And it was, yeah, it's always so chaotic. It feels like, at times, it feels like a powder keg about to blow up. And then, and we just go walk around, look at the animals and stuff, which is my favorite part. But yeah, I'm not a huge fan of it, but I understand its role in our society. I'm all for it, but I'm not going to hang out there a lot. What about you, Tim? You a state fair guy?
Oh man, I had been going a lot, quite a bit. I think like early on, 3 to about 13 or 14 years old, and then stopped going just because life started to happen. And then once I had my own kids, I really couldn't wait to take them, but it was hard. So the last couple of times that the state fair has been going on, I've been a solo man, and I usually go about in the heat of the day when everybody's thinking the same thing. Oh, I don't want to go during the day. That, asphalt jungle, it's going to be hot, and I'm usually right. It's less people. No, I like the feel of the carnival.
Yeah, I get it. I love the smaller fairs more, honestly. Like the Lodi fair is always really fun. There's a couple other smaller counties, but yeah.
I was going to say Lodi. You grew up at the Lodi fair, I imagine.
Yes, sir.
Before we get to your story, I need to talk about our sponsor. And a buddy of mine told me, time to pay the bills. So our sponsor, Buck and Honey's restaurants, are a place that people can escape to. For me, it's a great escape from cooking dinner. Greg, do you cook dinner?
I'm actually learning how to do it more by helping my wife do it. But I'm not good at it.
You're kind of they would call that the sous chef. She might say, hey, chop those carrots for me. Would you dice those onions?
I wish I had started sooner. Yeah, but that's exactly what I'm trying to become if she lets me.
What is your wife's genre, style, or cuisine?
She's good at experimenting with all kinds of stuff. Classic stuff, Indian food, Asian food, all over the place. It's wonderful.
All over the map. Good. Well, with their great food and drink menu, 5-star customer service, and a welcoming and vibrant atmosphere, people keep coming back with locations in Sun Prairie, Monona, Waunakee, and Mount Horeb, Wisconsin. Most communities in Dane County, which encompasses the Madison metropolitan area, can get to a Buck and Honey's within 10 to 15 minutes. And I got a little drum roll here. Have you been to Buck and Honey's?
No, but I can't wait to check it out. You did a good job selling it just now.
No. Yes, you can't wait, of course. If you ever decide to come up here, or you're going to be up here for work or something, or you got to hustle home and, get to Lodi and swing through, I definitely will say pizza on me. I'm a big fan of their pizza.
Nice.
Segment 1, what was it like before and what happened? So you were raised in Lodi, Wisconsin, and when I saw that, heard that, did a little background checking on you. That is just down the street from where I taught for 29 out of my 32 years, Waunakee, Wisconsin. And some people that I know from both communities, and know a lot of people from each one, obviously, Waunakee, but also Lodi. Lodi says that Waunakee is a suburb of Lodi, and Waunakee says Lodi is a suburb of Waunakee. What was life like growing up for you in Lodi, Wisconsin?
Yeah, man, it was good. I feel like I was a little restless. I always wanted to be in a city, I feel like, from very early. And so it did feel small to me. And I but I did my best with it and had a lot of fun. It took a lot of time for me to realize later in life how beneficial the safety of the community was, and just to be in a smaller community like that, there's a lot of benefits to it that I look back on very fondly. But overall, it was great. It was a great place to grow up.
I was going to ask you, because you were right about on that line of, were you in the old school, or were you part of the transition to the new high school?
Okay, so this is a little bit of a sticking point for my class. I graduated in 1998.
You did.
We were the last class in the old building.
Mm-hmm.
So we missed both the high school and the middle school, a new middle school and the new high school by 1 year, both of them. So the class after us got new schools, I think, twice.
So you have a real legitimate reason for kind of that thing going back to high school kids. And even at some point myself, I missed out on the 3-point shot when I graduated from high school, and the next year got it. And I always hear kids talk about, when I graduated, the next class had it so lucky, and it was legitimate for you.
That said, the old high school had a secret tunnel system underneath it, which we discovered. And so I can't complain, because we did get to experience the secret tunnel network underneath the building that we would not have had at the new building. So I do consider myself lucky in that way.
Wow. It's interesting that the Capone's built that place, or secret tunnel system.
Yeah, it was pretty exciting.
Tell us about your family growing up. You have, two parents, mom and dad, and you have 3 siblings. Spend some yarns about them.
Yeah, my family's pretty great. My mom and dad are very salt of the earth type human beings. They're very generous, very kind people. They worked really hard, and still do, to look out for their kids and their grandkids. And I have 3 siblings, an older brother and 2 older sisters. They're kind of spread out from North Carolina to Oshkosh, Neenah. But yeah, they're all really great people, and grateful for them.
You're the baby of the family then.
Yeah. Yes, I am. And I'm not sure how that impacted me exactly, but I'm told that's a thing, that the youngest kid ends up a certain way. But I'm not super confident in what that means. But yes, I was the youngest of 4.
Still finding your way. You have an amazing wife of 21 years and 4 equally amazing daughters. And I learned this probably back in I want to say February or March. You are a dodo. Do you know what a dodo is?
I don't know.
Dad of daughters only.
Yes. I love being a dad of daughters. And yes, my wife is incredible. She's the best part of my life by far. She's an incredible human being. Even when she annoys me, I realize that it's really just me that needs to grow usually. And even if it's not, at this point, we just enjoy knowing each other so well that we at least know how we're going to annoy each other. But yeah, she's super fun. She's a super smart, funny, cool person. And then my daughters are just a blast. And the hardest part of my life is parenting. I think sometimes, but not necessarily because of them. It's usually because I have to evolve in order to love them really well at the different stages of life that they are growing into. So it can be painful, but it's a good thing, man. I love it.
Well, it sounds like you also painted the picture of your mom and dad, and you had some very good role models to base your parenting off of. So you graduated from Lodi High School, the old one, and you are a proud Blue Devil. Besides the network of tunnels, twists, and turns underneath that old building, what were some of your favorite memories from high school?
One would just be friends. I had a very unique group of people around me, guys and girls who were just cool, adventurous, fun people. We did get in trouble sometimes, but I think that was mostly because we were just super creative and needed to push boundaries and whatever. But yeah, it was just a great group of friends. A couple other highlights. a mutual person that we know, Scott Stotts, and other Coach Mack, other coaches on the football team were very, very important to me and helped me to grow in a lot of ways that I would not have otherwise if I didn't have those guys in my life. So that was super special. And then Shelly Pear was a choir director, swing choir director. She played a big role in my life and the music department in general, Mrs. Weber. And anyways, but there's music and sports were really huge for me. Academics I struggled in a bit, but yeah, those were some of my favorite memories.
Yeah, you mentioned that you had played football in Lodi, and then all of a sudden, good old Coach Stotts, his face posted up right here on my right shoulder. Hey, ask him about me. And so that was kind of cool when you talked very highly of my good buddy, Coach Stotts. After high school, you would take your talents to the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. What was the lure? Any other suitors for your talents?
Well, Madison told me I didn't have enough potential to get in, so I went with my first choice, UW Milwaukee, and I really wanted to go to Milwaukee because I'd always been drawn to cities. I love cities, and a couple of friends were going to be going down there, and it wasn't a lot of people from Lodi that had gone to UWM. I only knew of one other person, who was an older sister of a friend of mine. And we went and visited her once, and driving past downtown, going to visit the UW Milwaukee campus, which is really beautiful. I just I want to go here, and so I went for it, and it was a really good decision for me.
Your days at UWM are done after college. You wear many different hats in your professional life, most in the recording industry as an artist and performer. What are some of your professional highlights so far?
Well, early on, I was recording music to try to pursue that as a career, and I was working with an organization that provided in-home therapy with kids who have autism, and I was using music, not because it was my job to do it, but because I thought it would help. I was using music to work with some kids and encourage them and help them with obstacles and grow in different ways, and that ended up creating an opportunity because of the impact. It created an opportunity to start a publishing company with some people and perform music full time and write and speak. And that was really cool. Pretty amazing time. But then I realized what I really wanted to do was take those lessons and take them into more places. And so I started using creativity to improve businesses and nonprofits and schools in a variety of ways. And that led to starting a business and then joining up with another company here in Milwaukee. So just the chapters of figuring out what it meant for me to be valuable. I just wanted to know what I could do to contribute and be valuable. And there's these moments where I would realize how to use my talents to be valuable to people. And it was inspiring to take risks in line with that. So those are some of my favorite highlights. I've done some cool work with different people, worked with Aaron Rodgers a lot when he was with the Packers, and with the Brewers. I've done a lot of work with the Brewers, and some of those just classic Wisconsin institutions that were pretty cool, and a lot of great companies. So yeah, a lot of good memories, honestly.
Yeah, you're dropping some pretty impressive names in there with the Packers and Aaron Rodgers and as Milwaukee Brewers, and again as a guy that has sports in mind, that had to be pretty cool. Because our listeners want to hear the rest of the story and really why you're on the show. There's a couple of reasons why you're on the show, and I'll talk about those as I lead into segment 2. Got to pay some bills here. Buck and Honeys has been with the Survive and Thrive 8791 crew since the beginning, with 4 locations in the Madison area. One is always near. People ask, why Buck and Honeys? Owner Tom Anderson places a high priority on the mental health of his employees. He has a mental health professional available for them should they need support. I don't know how many businesses go above and beyond their EAP, Employee Assistance Program, but Buck and Honeys does. In 2000, Greg Marshall would get sick. Originally diagnosed as encephalitis, he had experienced headaches, a seizure or seizures, and eventually couldn't walk. Doctors didn't know, tests and poking and prodding and drawing blood. Couldn't figure out what it is. Greg Marshall today will walk us through what that was like. So please stay tuned. Don't change that channel. You're not going to want to miss segment 2 of Survive and Thrive 8791. We will be back.
If you, a loved one, or someone you know is experiencing a physical, mental, or emotional crisis, there is help and resources out there. Contact NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness Helpline, at 1-800-950-6264. This is a free service providing information, resource referrals, and support to people living with a mental illness, their family, providers, and the public. United Way 211 is available 24/7, 365 and offers free confidential assistance. They connect people with the local programs and services that can help. Dial 211. Emergency Crisis Services, dial 911. The Suicide Prevention Lifeline, dial 988. To connect via web, chat, visit suicidepreventionlifeline.org. Along with those numbers, there is help. You just need to say 3 words. I need help. Now, back to the show.
We are back. Welcome back to segment 2 of Survive and Thrive 8791. I'm your host, Coach Tim Decora. We are in the Buck and Honey's remote studios on the east side of our great capital city of Madison, Wisconsin. The podcast is where we feature guests who share their story in hopes of helping others who may be struggling with what life throws at them. Greg Marshall is here today to share his incredible story about getting sick in 2000 and eventually not knowing what happened to him. He will share how he has survived after that. So as I mentioned, in 2000, you would start to experience headaches. A seizure would lead to then night seizures and couldn't walk, among other things. Since the show has a mental health component to it, you mentioned a wide range of emotions. Tell us about that and how did you cope? So tell us about some of the things that were going on to you, and then how were you coping through those things?
Yeah, well, I was feeling just strange and that summer, and then one day the seizure happened and came out of that, and then a week later I thought I was okay, but then I woke up and I couldn't feel my legs, and I could walk though, which was really strange. And then eventually they just got worse, and I was in the hospital and they were trying to figure out what was going on, and nobody could. But they, like you said, they called it encephalitis, but told me that they really didn't know what it was, and I left not really being able to use my legs. And over time, it started to come back. But, honestly, I was at a point in my life where I was actually really excited about what was going on. I was starting to discover more about myself. Like, I felt like a faith kind of building in me for life, just knowing that there was maybe a purpose in my life. I was starting to realize that for the first time, and was experiencing a lot of momentum when this all went down. And so for me, one of the first emotions was a little bit confusion of, okay, like, I'm making better decisions. I'm growing in these really cool ways. Why would something like this happen right now at the climax of what feels like this super exciting season? But I had so much hope and, like I said, momentum that it really didn't shake me too much. I was like, all right, I'm just going to keep believing that there's a purpose and then like my life means something, and I'm just going to keep going. But it just kind of got harder and harder. And I remember one night in particular in the hospital where, my body just wasn't working. So I, wake up in the middle of the night covered in urine and sweat and just so embarrassed of things and like afraid to ask for help. I didn't want to ask for help, and just kind of tormented inside and tired of feeling kind of, helpless in a lot of ways. But then when I left the hospital, things got better, in some ways worse, because certain parts, like my body wasn't working right. It was frustrating and it was humiliating at times. And so, yeah, I would say the feelings went from not really a fear of not being able to walk again, because I figured I would, but even if I didn't, I was like, I bet that there's some sort of purpose for me here. But it was really just like fatigue and emotional fatigue, and then eventually humiliation. And in terms of coping with those, a big part of it was watching community show up for me. Friends from high school, friends from college, family showing up at the hospital, pushing me around in a wheelchair, just people loving on me was pretty cool. And there was a church that my family didn't even go to. It was just up the street from my house. And the pastor and some other people heard about what was going on, and they just started showing up and asking if they could help and encourage us in any way. And watching how encouraging that was to my parents and what it was to me. I mean, people just showing up and encouraging just because they heard that something was wrong. So there was a lot of that. My faith played a huge role, which was a new thing to me at that time, just trying to see outside myself. And then another coping mechanism huge for me was music. So when on the way home from the hospital, I actually got a guitar so that I could learn how to play the guitar while I was getting my legs back. And creating music was a massive part of coping with it. So those are some of the pieces.
Did you start to notice any change in your demeanor once you started to, open up about, and you mentioned it really wasn't fear, you kind of still, I think it's to have something like this happen, and I'm thinking it was the second year of college. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah,
right in there?
After the second year, yeah.
Yep, so you finish your second year of college, and this happens. I think if it's going to happen then, that's a good time because you still got that. You haven't really grown up yet. You still got a whole life to live, and it sounds like you kind of grabbed onto that a little bit. Did you start to open up to other people about how you were feeling? And was there a moment where you thought, okay, this has got some huge impact on me, and now I'm going to get through this?
Yeah, I think it was interesting to experience it. The optimism in me that really carried me pretty far, but there was a moment where I come to the end of myself, and I was just feeling especially humiliated and low. And my dad asked me if I was okay, and it was very vividly the first time that I was willing to admit that I wasn't physically, mentally, emotionally okay. I was in a very dark place, but I was trying to ignore that and just keep believing that everything was fine. But the paradox was to get to a place where I was actually fine, I had to admit that I wasn't, and acknowledge that suffering is real. The feelings I had were very real, and it didn't make sense to shove them down and ignore them, but to acknowledge them, to acknowledge that I felt humiliated and exhausted and discouraged, and realizing that it's important to acknowledge that and to have hope. And to understand that both of those things exist at the same time. And I was trying to keep it one or the other, maybe I'm just supposed to have hope. And it's well, wait, I'm done with that. Does that mean I have to just be in a super dark place and just be depressed and let go of hope? And that was the beautiful moment for me, was realizing that you can simultaneously be in a very dark place and know there is hope, and let yourself feel all the discouragement, all the grief of things that I lost in that time, opportunities that I lost, mobility that I lost for that season. There's a lot of grief, and it's important to feel all of it, but to also recognize that hope has not gone anywhere. It's still there. And that was a very powerful thing. And so when I opened up to my dad and just saying the simple word, no, I'm not okay, that was I think a turning point for me. It allowed me to be honest about the fact that I just wasn't doing well.
That is very powerful. That's very powerful stuff. That your dad asking that hard question, and some dads, because of the relationship they might have with their kids, in particular, man to man, dad to son, that might be hard for a lot of people to do. And your dad did it, and maybe he was kind of at the end of his, feelings or whatever, and you just said, hey, are you okay? And you said one of the three words that helped save my life a few years ago, and one of the four words, I said, no, I need help. And you started out with, no, I don't feel good. And once you recognized that, where you were at, and and could live in that place, knowing that eventually you were going to come out. So having said that, now, was there a point where you got to where you said to yourself, maybe, I don't feel sick anymore, I think I'm going to be okay? Was there a point?
Yeah, that took a long time. And honestly, I don't even remember when I really felt that way, because there was things with my nervous system, my neurological system would misfire or not work right. And it took a long time. It took many, many years. But there was a day when, a few months after getting home from the hospital, I was invited to perform at the Coliseum in Madison. And at this point, I had to walk with a cane because I wasn't fully there, but I was better, So I say I get to do this show. There's 6,000 people there, and I'm standing backstage, and they announce us, and I set my cane down, and I just went out without it, and it was the most exhausting and exhilarating experience because, the lights are dark, the crowd is roaring, this really cool experience. And then the music comes on and we start our music and people are cheering. And I'm just like in this moment feeling like I probably am not even performing well right now. Like I probably sound terrible. I'm breathing heavy. Like I have no endurance. My legs are barely working, but I'm out here doing this thing. And that was a moment where I was like, yeah, I got this. I'm gonna overcome this. That was a big moment for me.
Dude, you just gave me the tingles. Guy who's come so far, and you kind of talked us through what you were going through in your hospital bed and you couldn't feel your legs, but you could walk, seizures, and you set the cane down, and there's probably a point in a lot of people's lives where they can hang on to the cane and that's going to be with me the entire time, or you just set it down and it was a bit symbolic and you walk out there and there's 6,000 people out there. And yeah, painting that whole scene is kind of what brings you, the second part of what brings you here is you are a great storyteller. And I saw your event, so I'm gonna kind of back up here a little bit. So in early July 2025, I saw a story about you on our local CBS affiliate here in Madison, and they do a little piece called In the 608, in which they talked about your then upcoming performance. Greg Marshall pops out of the trees, and your performance was going to be at the Burr Oak in the Atwood neighborhood, and that Atwood neighborhood in Burr Oak is near the state capitol in Madison, Wisconsin, and I saw it. Tell us about, I know what I saw. I saw a storyteller. I saw a guy sing. I saw a guy play your guitar. I heard you rap. You showed several different layers, but you tell a better story than I do. So I'm going to shut my yapper and have you tell us about what I saw.
Well, I'm definitely more interested in your take on it, but I'll give a quick summary. It's what's called a one-man show or a one-person show. That it's a mix of storytelling. Sometimes a one-person show is just somebody acting out a character or telling you a story, or a mix of music and storytelling. And mine is it's a mix of me telling a story that has a lot to do with this story that we're discussing. That's the centerpiece of it, but it starts earlier and goes longer than what we'll probably cover. But it's me telling a story, and then I have a looping pedal on stage with me that I'll use my voice and run my voice and guitar through to create music to help score it and add to the story. And it's a little over an hour, and it's the kind of thing that makes people laugh and cry and then laugh again and inspired, and ends with kind of a what I refer to as a magic trick, where I'll take topics from the audience or stories from the audience and turn the story upside down and make it about the audience as opposed to my story, which is ultimately the purpose of the whole thing. But yeah, it's a blend of all those things to entertain people and make people feel encouraged and inspired to remember that their lives actually matter.
It was really cool when I followed up with a phone conversation after I came and introduced myself after your performance, and I was thinking to myself, and I started searching that night when I got home, where do I see more of this kind of stuff, a storyteller? And everybody, I love a story. A lot of people love to hear stories and details and vivid imaginations. And you kind of talked us through that, of some of your stories that night. Where do people see those kinds of performances in or around the state, or is it somewhere in other parts of the country?
Yeah, you'll see it occasionally, like in Milwaukee, there'll be, occasionally something with like the Milwaukee Chamber Theater or the Rep. You might catch something at the Riverside or the Pabst Theater or something coming through town. But yeah, there's not a whole lot of it. It's not like most people come to my show and are wondering what it is that they even came to. Somebody told them they should go. And I've even had family members say things like, okay, like I laughed, I cried, that was really good, but I still don't know what that was. So it's not really a super common thing here in Milwaukee or in Wisconsin, but if you go to Los Angeles, there's everybody, like there's so many of them. New York, there's a lot of them. So it's a well-known art form that's on Broadway, it's on, theaters throughout the country, but yeah, it's just not as common here. So got to look out for them carefully. But then there's also things like story slams. In Milwaukee, there's an organization called Ex Fabula that does story slams, where you just go and people tell stories based on a topic, and there's competitions. And then there's also The Moth, which is a podcast, but they have events as well with storytelling. So those are some things that I would recommend checking out.
I went to check it out at Burr Oak, and I thought it was amazing. So what I want you to see if you can do, and we talked about this off air, but do you have a story to share with us today, something that will give people an idea of what kind of performance they would see if they came and saw you live? You got something for us today?
Well, I think some of the ones that I've shared already would be from that show, but I have a story that comes to mind that I don't tell at the show, and that is unrelated, but maybe is like a seed to where it came from. After I graduated, a lot of things changed in my life. I started thinking differently about my purpose, about what this all meant. I didn't want to just focus on partying and what felt like just kind of spinning my wheels and feeling aimless. And so a lot of things shifted inside of me, and I started creating music with people and like going into schools and conferences and all these, really unique places with new friends and stuff. And so there was a time, the woman that I mentioned, Shelley Pear, was a choir director at Lodi High School, and she knew what was going on in my life, because I probably gave her some stress in high school. I know I did, but she also believed in me. And so when she heard about what was going on with me in music, she invited me to come back to Lodi High School to speak. And I brought a hip-hop crew of very talented people. There was another Lodi student named Jason Alexander who was there doing turntablism, like scratching records and that kind of stuff. But there was break dancers, MCs, turntablists, like I said, and different types of musicians, and it was a very diverse, beautiful presentation. And there was a point in it where at the climax of the show, I gave a talk, and I performed as though I was speaking to myself at the age of 17 or 18. And I was probably in my early 20s at this point. But I basically like confronted myself as a 18-year-old still in high school. And I did things that I didn't expect. Like I knew what I was going to do, but I freestyled it. And I felt like I was actually encountering me as a 17 or 18-year-old. And it became very emotional and potent. And we ended the show with some music. But after the show, kids were lining up, coming up to the stage. And the first kid, I was like, this is cool. Like, they actually want to talk. And the first kid was like, I'm addicted to drugs. I'm addicted to Oxycontin. I don't want to be, I need help. And then the girl comes up and she's like, I'm in a really bad toxic relationship, and I want to get out of it, but I don't know how. And then the next kid, and then the next kid. And I looked over and I saw a teacher was talking to some other kids about what was happening in their lives. And I was sitting there like, yeah, this is it. This is the thing that I want my life to be about. I want to share stories, create experiences that help people to remember that their lives matter, and that the hard work of having hope, the hard work of overcoming really challenging things, it's all worth it. It's actually, that's life. Like living fully is saying, yes, I want to actually grow. So, I'm on a stage at Baroque, like it's a totally different context, it's a totally different world, but it's the same outcome. I just want people to remember that their lives matter. If I'm doing a branding workshop for a company and I'm helping leaders to find alignments around who they are and where they're headed and how they can make more money and build a stronger culture, underneath all of it, I'm still doing that so that those people can remember that their lives matter, their customers' lives matter, the promises they make matter, and life is more full when you make the sacrifices necessary to actually keep those promises and keep growing. So that's always been the thread that's tied everything together for me.
That is good stuff. I mean, I've been in that situation too, where kids line up. I give a presentation, keynote on my story, and I get 6-8 kids line up, and the sad thing about it is that the good thing is that they're asking for help in identifying that they have something going on in their life. The sad thing for me is always the fact that I was in it 20, 30 years ago. They're in it now. They're in that addiction now. They're in that toxic relationship now. They're in an abusive home. And I just tell them, stick with friends, stick your life into school and live healthy and try to make good choices, and it always gets better. Look at Greg Marshall. Look at Tim DeCora. It does get better, but you're gonna really learn from that. This is where the subscribers, followers, and listeners take out the notebooks, pens, and pencils and jot some things down. Here are Greg Marshall's 5 suggestions that allowed him to survive and thrive an undiagnosed illness and lead to earning 3 Emmy Awards. And we're going to come back to the Emmy Awards here in a little bit, but here's what you shared, and I'm going to toss these in underhand softball style. Can you hit a softball, Greg?
Yes, actually, occasionally.
Yes, actually, occasionally. Okay, so I'm going to have you hit each of these in about 60 seconds or less, or slightly more. But here's what you shared. Number 1, decide not to give up. Go ahead and hit that, Greg.
Yeah, it is what it sounds like. It's a choice to say, I want to find out who I become if I don't give up. Doing the right thing, believing, having hope, whether it be in work or a tough situation, that's the one choice that will set you apart in the long run more than anything else.
Decide not to give up. Number 2, take each moment as it comes. Go ahead and hit that.
Yeah, the only thing, sometimes we try to carry things that are not ours to carry. And those are things sometimes from the past or some things in the future, or what if questions. What if questions lead to a lot of anxiety. So I've learned that it's very important to be present where I am, to acknowledge where I am, how I feel where I am, and to deal with that. It's kind of like you walk in your bedroom and you're overwhelmed by cleaning it. Well, it starts by just picking up one article of clothing, putting that one away, and then just doing that again. Doing one thing one more time, and you just keep doing that one thing in that moment, and next thing you know, you've gotten a long way. But when you try to take the whole thing, it feels daunting, because the whole thing at once is daunting. But one thing at a time, one moment at a time, be present, and you can handle that.
That's good stuff. Number 3, and this one caught my eye. Zoom out to remember the big picture. Go ahead and hit that.
Oh my gosh, is what you just said too, about recognizing it's going to get better. And if you choose not to give up, like, odds are things are going to get better. And a lot of things in life get harder even as they're getting better, but they do get better. But I think about to zoom out and remember the big picture. Sometimes I like to remember that, anybody who's in the history books for good reasons also went through some really hard stuff, also were rejected, also had to suffer for what they believed in or what they loved. And so you zoom out and you see you're in good company if you're going through a hard thing. You're in very, very good company. And you don't, like, if you attach that to don't give up, take the moment as it comes. But remember, like, you are not alone. You are not the first person to go through this. In many ways, some of the craziest stuff we experience is somewhat normal, at least like the stuff that happens inside of us. So yeah, I like to zoom out and remember that. But I also like to zoom out on a cosmic level. And I believe that we are all part of a very big story, a very redemptive story that is ultimately, driven by love and wisdom and grace and mercy. So I like to zoom out and remember that my life is surrounded and immersed in all kinds of grace to figure out what's next. So zoom out, then zoom back in and deal with the moment with the wisdom of a bigger picture.
Excellent. Number 4, be intentional with how you comfort yourself. Go ahead and hit that.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So addictions, poor decisions, I'd say a vast majority of it comes from us trying to comfort ourselves and not realizing that was a need, and not realizing that we're defaulting to things that are unhealthy. And so there's many, like when we're in distress, which is very common for human beings, obviously, recognizing like the ways that we are trying to comfort ourselves by trying to control things, or whether it be alcohol or different kinds of drugs, or our cell phones, or binge watching movies, or eating, brownies, whatever it is. Like there's big ways to comfort ourselves with prayer, with friendships, taking control of the stories that we tell ourselves, a can of sparkling water, or a healthy meal, or going for a walk. But sometimes when we're hurt because of past experiences or something that we're going through now, when we feel aimless, or we feel kind of in chaos or in a tough situation, we default to unhealthy mechanisms for comforting ourselves. And I just think it's so valuable to acknowledge that's a category, to be conscious of it, and to seek habits of comforting yourself that are healthy, because it'll save you from so much suffering in the future.
Amen. Hallelujah. Finding that knowing the difference between unhealthy and healthy. Yeah. The quicker you can figure that out, the better. And number 5.
And the quicker you can, like, the quicker you acknowledge that you need comfort. Like, people are sometimes afraid to, that's not what I'm talking about. That's not what I'm dealing with. Like, okay, like, just think about it for a few weeks, and eventually you'll come to the point where you realize your anger, your rage, you're just trying to comfort yourself by controlling things, whatever. But yeah, it's a big deal once you get to realize, oh, that's what I'm doing.
Dynamite stuff. And number 5, lean on faith, hope, and love. Go and hit that.
Yeah, faith. This all means something. The world is so full of meaning. It's so full of meaning. We are not machines in cogs. It's full of meaning. And I believe that behind that is a whole lot of love and intentional purpose. And we can have hope in that. And ultimately, the best response to anything is love, which is not first and foremost an emotion or a feeling. It's an action. It's an action of pursuing somebody, humbling yourself to sacrificially improve their life or help them. And so, the more that we look to embody faith, hope, and love, the more we're aligning ourselves with what is truly real, and it gives us traction to move forward in a meaningful way.
Good stuff, Greg Marshall. 5 things that helped you get through an undiagnosed illness that has no name. It had some symptoms, but you don't know what it was. I hope someday you can come with some closure on that, but regardless, you have survived and are thriving. I do have to ask a question, though, for the listeners that might be driving to work. Hey, ask Coach Cora, ask Greg what those 3 Emmy Awards were for. So if you got 60 seconds, tell our listeners what those Emmy Awards were for.
Yeah, well, some of the Emmy nominations came from some work that I was doing with Aaron Rodgers and a lawyer here in Milwaukee named David Gruber, where we were surprising kids at their home and developed this brand called It's Aaron. That's what started the Emmy conversations, but then I ended up winning 2 with campaigns that I did with the Milwaukee Brewers. One of them was an Icon campaign, for example, where we interviewed like Bob Uecker and Bud Selig and Mark Attanasio and Robin Yount, Craig Counsell, and just told these epic stories and really inspiring things. And I think we won an Emmy for a video about Craig Counsell growing up here. But anyways, and then there was one also that I won for a local college called Milwaukee School of Engineering. We produced a video about artificial intelligence that ended up winning an Emmy for online content.
Maybe they brought the content for my data selection today, the AI overview. Anyway, what an episode. I'm so glad you could join us, and really honored. Join the Survive and Thrive 8791 crew today. Your story and what happened to you at kind of a young age, right in the middle of when you are seeking you and knowledge about you, to where you are now is inspiring. Your story reminds us all to have coping skills or mental health tools in the toolbox. And I think you provided some tools in the toolbox that I didn't even think of. And they're going to go in there for me. When a person is met with challenges of life, and despite that, you have survived and thrived. Our call to action, Greg Marshall just shared a story about how he endured a time of unknown in his life at a young, ripe age. He didn't let his illness keep him down, and he mentioned that today. Here are Greg Marshall's suggestions that helped him survive and thrive during that time. Number 1, decide not to give up. Number 2, take each moment as it comes. Number 3, zoom out to remember the big picture. Number 4, be intentional with how you comfort yourself. And number 5, lean on faith, hope, and love. Final thoughts as we close another great episode of Survive and Thrive 8791. Are there any final thoughts, Greg Marshall?
The thing that comes to mind right now is just that I have a lot of empathy that life can be so hard, and as hard as it can be, it's that worth it and far more. And I would hope on anybody to have a friend like I have in my wife, and the community that surrounds me with work and church and just my community here in Milwaukee and even back home. So I just hope people can find friendship and simply believe that this hard work is worth it.
Excellent. On our next episode of Survive and Thrive 8791, we will have another amazing guest in the Buck and Honey's remote studios who will share how they learned to survive and thrive. If you have a story to share or you know someone who does, please reach out to me at tdecora@gmail.com. Until next time, hang in there with whatever you happen to be going through, and with hard work, dedication, and determination, you can survive and thrive. Until next time, take care.